Welcome back to Open Window Politics. Today we're going to be doing a prediction between the former Secretary of Transportation on the Democratic side, that being Pete Buttigieg, versus the Republican frontrunner for the 2028 Republican nomination in the moment, that being also the current Vice President, J.D. Vance. We'll be going through each of these swing states to give them ratings on how far to the left or right they will vote. So I will add a tilt rating, and we will get started with the state of Nevada. Going to put that into the lean blue column for Buttigieg. I think this will be a fairly easy state for Democrats to pick up. They lost every state they lost every competitive state in 2024, and I think that Nevada will be one of the ones to go to the left quite a bit more than it did in 2024. That state did go for Trump, which was an impressive feat. Trump didn't win Nevada in 2016 either, but in 2024 it happened, kind of shocked the nation. And I think that in the long run, Nevada and the rest of the Sun Belt will become more Democratic friendly. But I think if the election were held today between Pete Buttigieg and J.D. Vance, that Buttigieg would get a decently sized lead in the state of Nevada against J.D. Vance. And then Arizona, it'll be interesting to see what happens in Arizona. We haven't had someone other than Trump at the top of the ballot for Republicans for over a decade, and the electoral math and demographics have shifted significantly since the mid-2010s. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here in Arizona. The state has gone further and further to the left. It's elected Democrats. They have 2 Democrats in the Senate, 1 Democratic governor. The state did go to Trump by a lean margin, however, in 2024, so Republicans were hopeful about that. But I think if the election were to be held today, that it would result in a narrow Pete Buttigieg victory, but that state would go for him. And then we're going to go on over to the other half of the Sun Belt. I'm going to go to Georgia. I'm going to put that into the tilt blue column as well for Pete Buttigieg. Buttigieg has tried to portray himself as more of a moderate. He's appeared on Fox News a couple times and has definitely tried to reach out to independents and even some Republicans. And he originally ran in 2020 for the Democratic Party's nomination. Ultimately, he ended up dropping out and endorsing Biden. But later on, Biden picked him for the Secretary of Transportation, so he was able to get some federal experience. And I think that would be a selling point for many voters in Georgia and throughout the swing states. So that is going to be the state of Georgia. North Carolina, I'm going to put that into J.D. Vance's column. This state hasn't gone blue on the presidential level since 2008, so I think it would take quite a bit for Democrats to be able to actually win the state. And at the moment, I just don't see it as the most likely possibility. And then we're going to finally head up to the Rust Belt. That will really determine the presidency. I'm going to start with the state of Michigan. I think this state has probably the most likely shot of ending up in the Democratic Party's column out of the 3 Rust Belt states. This is, if I remember correctly now, Pete Buttigieg's home state. He originally was a mayor in South Bend, Indiana, and then J.D. Vance, of course, from the neighboring state there in Ohio. Ohio, I think, will almost certainly end up in the Republican Party's column. But as far as Michigan goes, I think this state would probably end up in the Democratic Party's column. I think J.D. Vance's best hope is probably going to be in the state of Pennsylvania. Ultimately, I don't think he'll be able to win Pennsylvania, but I do think it is a possibility in Pennsylvania for it to go for J.D. Vance. But even with Pennsylvania, we can do the hypothetical math. It would still be a Pete Buttigieg victory, so that is going to be 284. And then we're going to switch the state of Pennsylvania back to the Democrats, giving us 303 to 235. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.